Welcome back. I wanted to spend today talking a little bit about some of the supplies I have and some of the thoughts that were working themselves out in my head as we progress into a style that's far beyond what Bob Ross showed us. For a lot of people, the joy of painting was where we started. But Bob didn't give us a final product. He only handed us a key that opened up a door to a world where anything was possible. Art in general can't be generalized. It's far too personal to put structure onto it that would work for everyone. A good example of this is like the choice you have to make in oil painting of which solvent you will use. Traditionally, the solvent of choice was turpentine. However, turpentine smells absolutely horrible, and in some cases, gives the artist a headache. More recent environmental concerns have turned most artists away from this choice for more environmentally or even kid-friendly solutions. This doesn't mean that for you the smell is bad, or the added effort of properly disposing of unusable solvents isn't worth using a more traditional method. That's just all part of the journey, figuring out what you like and what you don't to create the art that you want to. For me, I find that the Mona Lisa brand of odorless brush cleaner is perfect. My nose doesn't pick up any unpleasant smells, while still giving me the ability to add it to my paints, to thin it out to almost an ink-like consistency, without affecting the final color in any negative way. However, there are some effects that I like to create that thinner alone just won't do, such as how Bob blended his sky. A sky will become lighter as it reaches the horizon. For this, he used liquid white, or in the cases of a black or colored canvas, liquid clear was used. I find that these products in the Bob Ross line of products works for me. Again, the smells aren't unpleasant to me, and I find that the control of these products is something that I can manage as I manipulate the paints onto my canvas. My most recent supply purchase has given me the free opportunity to give a new product some experimenting. Jerry's Artorama sent me a sample set of Chelsea's classical studio mediums, the contents of which range from brush soaps to varnish for the final coat on a painting. I haven't got a chance yet to sample most of it, but I did get into the lavender spike oil, which is a safer alternative to turpentine that's been naturally extracted from the lavender flower. While I like the way it feels and the effect it had on the paints, the smell is just far too strong for me. Just the little bit I used made my entire house smell as if I had burned a lavender incense. While the smell wasn't really unpleasant, it's just not one I enjoy. Another choice you have to make is which paints you will use. From a beginner's perspective, there doesn't appear to be much of a difference between paints. Yet, nothing could be further from the truth. There are 3 grades of paints that can be purchased, the lowest of which is student grade. Not that there's anything wrong with this choice. In fact, this is the grade of paint you've been watching me use. In most cases, it's the most economical choice and will provide you with a cheaper way to practice and develop your skills without having to dive into the much more expensive options that are available, only to produce work that you're usually going to be nervous about showing friends and family, let alone approaching a gallery with. Your typical student grade paint will be about half filler, a third pigment, and the remaining sixth being oil. Each company has their own recipe, but that's roughly where it will lie. This allows them to provide you with a paint that will act and maybe even feel like some of the higher grades, at a price that even beginners can afford. However, the quality of these paints will certainly be lacking, and the pigment will not be as rich, nor will it stretch without changing the hue itself. A step up is what's called artist grade paint. Typically, these are the paints that you will see most working artists using. While they are still not professional quality, there will be much less filler, right around a third of the tube, the rest being pigment and oil at a ratio of somewhere around 3:1. This allows them to provide a product that is still affordable, while a much closer match to the professional paints in terms of pigment strength and manipulative ability. I've since purchased a set of these paints that I will show you when I begin to use them. The highest grade professional are typically made by hand in a more traditional manner. While machines are great, and the thirst to create drives a market for supplies that requires mass production, there is no substitute for the quality of these paints. As an artist, you have a responsibility to your collectors to provide them with a piece of work that is not only beautiful as it comes fresh off the easel, but stays that way for many years or even generations. Pro- Professional grade paints will ensure that you are taking the first steps towards holding up to this responsibility. The only fillers you will find in these paints are those that are necessary to ensure the paint remains stable within its quality and pigment, typically right around 5%. The pigment and oil are in its purest form possible. It's usually molded by hand, ensuring that the pigment gets fully ingrained into the oil and will remain very rich in hue, giving it the ability to almost stretch over the entire surface without ever losing hue.
Your final choice is in tools, what surface you will use, and which brushes you'll pick up. Depending on your style choices and mediums, some surfaces will work for you and some won't. At the end of the day, the truth still remains. You get what you pay for. There are three main surfaces artists will use: paper, stretched canvas, or canvas board. In my opinion, canvas board are junk. While I've never gotten one from a reputable dealer, my experience tells me that they have a tendency to curl or warp, even prior to their purchase. As much as I tend to avoid them, you might like them because they provide a stretched canvas feel while still being able to fit in a frame in the same manner a paper would. Most pre-stretched canvas or canvas board that is sold will most likely be sold as pre-primed. While this is not a full-blown lie, there is a bit of falsehood in this. Most of the cheaper options, while they will prime them, it's very poor quality primer and will typically result in the artist questioning why they can't get the same effects that they've seen on this or that. It is wise, regardless of how it's sold, to prime the canvas for yourself prior to beginning the painting. Much like your choice in paint, beginning with the cheap stuff and working your way to a more professional supply as your skills improve is not only economical, but will help you give you the information you need to distinguish between what's good and what's bad. A good value canvas for beginners would be Practica. While they do show signs of low quality, they are perfect for practice and development. Makes it a lot easier to chuck it across the room if you've made a mistake that you just can't live with, until you've developed your eye enough to see that sometimes those mistakes are the best part. Something that you really shouldn't do when you've spent hundreds of dollars on just the canvas. While Practica canvases also provide a surface that is very close to the feel of high quality canvas. Brushes should be the only part you don't skimp on. While cheap brushes seem more economical, you will end up spending more money replacing them as they split and splay beyond what could be considered still usable. A good set of brushes with proper care can last a lifetime. They will hold their shape and edge for much longer than anything considered cheap. A lot of your choices in brushes do depend on the other choices you've made. Stiffer the paint you plan on using, the stiffer you're going to want your brush to be. This can create kind of a catch-22 if you're unsure of what will work best for you. And if you just want to test the waters a bit, a few cheap brushes may help you better decide on which set to go with when you have a better idea on your previous choices. You will want to upgrade them as soon as possible and avoid replacing a bad brush with another bad brush. Your biggest resource for bettering your skills will be books. Information is the key to growth. Currently, I'm reading the Artist Handbook, 5th edition by Ralph Mayer. I'm still in the beginning, but already I can see the main focus is on the fundamental laws an artist should follow, as long as they don't conflict with their personal style. It's very clear in its message and appears as a great starting resource. I've also purchased a few DVDs but honestly, I feel like there wasn't enough information contained within to justify the purchase. While there was some good information in there, there was also some bad information that I picked out. Along those lines, artists aren't always the most exciting people when they're talking about their craft, and they tend to make confusing statements, as while what works for them may not be what works for you. In my experience, books will give you the ability to develop what you know, while DVDs will only show you how to paint. No amount of demonstration will develop knowledge, and we paint what we know, not what we see. So I leave you with this, a line from the artist handbook. Good supplies will not make a good artist, but a good artist can do amazing work with even the worst of supplies.